Have you ever wondered how velocity is calculated in your sprint? Have you thought about what to include, what not to include? How is this messing up with all output and outcome? Here is the answer with a little bit of physics and a bit more of Agile. Hello everyone, how are you doing? My name is Debopom Sanyal and I am your personal coach. So what are we going to talk about today? I'm going to talk about a very interesting and important topic. Now there are several ways of describing it, and that is outcome versus output. Now you must have heard about this word velocity. Yeah. Whenever you are working in a project, team, right? Everything comes down to velocity, and maybe you are going and trying to convince your leadership that velocity is not a measure of your productiveness, right? It doesn't equate to productivity, right? And maybe there are so many instances where people fail to convince that. Reason being, we do not include the basic part of it. What is the basic? From where this concept of velocity comes, because we don't really include physics to explain that, and we really need physics to explain why, right? So let's bring some of the basic concept of physics to explain that. Now, how many of you remember or maybe aware of something called vector and scalar quantity? Yeah, anyone can remember? Okay, let me give you a brief about it before I go into all this outcome versus output. So what is a scalar quantity? Scalar quantity is something that has only magnitude, so you can represent it with a value, right? Now what is vector? Vector is something which you can represent with magnitude as well as position, right? So you have magnitude and position. And with that comes a concept of velocity. So you have two quantity we are talking about. One is speed. So how can you explain speed? Speed is a scalar quantity, right? Where you can say that person is moving 60 kilometers per hour, 60 miles per hour. You are only describing it with a value. Can you explain velocity with that? You cannot, because velocity is a vector quantity, right? So when you explain velocity, how do you do that? You say 60 kilometers per hour east or west or north, right? So basically what you are saying, you are talking about the direction as well. All right. So how velocity is now getting calculated. So what is speed? How average speed gets calculated? So if I ask you at what speed you are driving, right? There could be an instantaneous speed, which is that speed you are driving at that moment, right? It could be 50, 40, 30, but you generally don't drive, unless you are in cruise mode. Your speed generally differs, right? Sometimes 20, sometimes 30, sometimes 40. When you start at 0, right? So how do you calculate your average speed? You total distance divided by the time. That's how you calculate your average speed. How do you calculate your average velocity? Okay. So average velocity is your total displacement divided by the time, right? So what has been the change of position from the initial position that you were beginning with? So if you go 5 steps ahead, you come 5 steps back, right? So what is the displacement? 0. Your velocity is 0. Maybe you have a speed. You did have a speed, right? But you didn't have a velocity, because the initial position is same as the final position. So your velocity is basically 0. Is that idea clear? How it is? It's a vector quantity, so your position does matter. Now, come back to the space of Agile, if you can. Yeah. So, think about it. When you are delivering number of stories, story points, what these are. Now, if you are working on something and you do not finish it, what is your displacement? 0, right? So if you start working on a particular story and you did not really complete it, you didn't meet your definition of done, right? So what's your displacement? 0, right? However, the distance, that's not 0, right? From a scalar point of view, you did cover plenty of things, right? Maybe you did 90%, 95%. From a scalar point of view, yes, there is a value, right? But from a vector point of view, there isn't. All right? So, from output wise, there was output. Yeah? Because you work on something, that's an output, but there was no outcome. Right? So, whenever you calculate velocity, you calculate only those things which you have an outcome, where you are providing a value, right? So that means there has been some displacement. There has been change in position from the initial position, and the final position is not same. All right? So that's not your productivity. That's your how much value you have provided. Correct? So plenty of people question me that what happens when we work on so many items, so many stories, but ultimately we couldn't finish anything during our iteration, during a scrum, during our sprint, or whatever iteration you're following, right? What is my velocity? I have already covered, right? So how can I break it? Can I say, okay, I was working on a 5-story pointer, so yeah, I did on 3, right? I worked on 3, some rough calculation, so my velocity is 3. Doesn't make a difference, doesn't make a point, right? Because when you started, you had a DOD, right? So you knew your position, initial position, and you knew what is your final position, where that you had to reach there, right? Now, you didn't reach there. So your displacement is still 0. So it doesn't come under your velocity, right? So this is exactly why the output and outcome are different, right? So in a perfect condition, what do? We strive to achieve outcome. That's what our goal is. We try to achieve outcome because we can do so many things, so many unproductive things, so many things which are which makes no difference to the displacement. That doesn't count to the change of position. We want to give customer a value, and those actions don't really make any contribution towards delivering that value. So those are distance covered, but those are not displacement. Those are output, but those are not outcome. So whenever next time somebody questions you about your velocity, average velocity, right? That why can't we include that, or why can you include that? Tell them, because velocity is a vector quantity where you need to have magnitude as well as the position, direction, which way you went, right? Whether there was a change in the position or not. If there isn't, there is no calculation of velocity. If there is, there you have it. You have velocity. I hope that clarifies your doubt. What is velocity? How you are calculating your average velocity, and that time frame. If you have to say, okay, what is my rolling of average, right? You can have 6 sprints, 5 sprints, 4 sprints, whatever. However you want to do it, it depends on different organization, depends on different people. How you want to do it, that's fine, right? Remember that there has been some displacement. Otherwise, don't include that, right? It doesn't make sense. So hope it clarifies your doubt if you had, and feel free to comment. Feel free to let me know your question if you have any, right? If you want me to cover any of the topics, do tell that in your comment section. If you want more guidance, if you want to talk to me personally, reach out to me on my email ID mentioned in the description, right? And I would be very happy to talk to you or help you out with anything. Till then, till the next video, stay safe, stay healthy. Thank you.